Do muddy colors in your watercolor painting still surprise and frustrate you? Here's the truth. It's not your talent. It's one simple color principle you can use today. I used to struggle with the same thing. In fact, you'll see me make a muddy mistake in this very video. But you don't need to study a 500-page color theory tome to fix this. By the end of this video, you'll be painting vibrant scenes like this and keep the mud at bay. The fastest way to stop making muddy colors in watercolor is to stop using colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, such as blue and orange, red and green, and yellow and violet. Let's take a look. Blue and orange, red and green, and yellow and violet. How do we maintain our brilliance and not get mud in a composition like this where we have that full range from purple to yellow? By working with analogous colors on the color wheel all the way from violet to yellow, that's the key to preventing mud. Watch how I prevent mud by working in a continuum all the way from violet to yellow. This is the approach that I'll use in this painting, and it's only mud if you don't want it. Watch what I do when I get mud. So the challenges in this composition are not only the trying to avoid mud, but how do we get those clouds looking luminous and backlit at the same time? And how can we do the reflections in the wet sand? The first thing to do is we want to lay down our foundational wash. This establishes the light. That's going to be the background sky. So if you look in the reference photo, you'll see how between the clouds, where the clouds are sort of breaking apart, you can see maybe sort of an orange sky or sort of a light purple sky. That's what the sky would look like if there were no clouds. So that's going to be our foundational color for this. And so what I'm going to want to do is put that color in the sky, and I'm going to bring it down into the wet sand area. And then that way I'm working with the same colors and can start building up those reflections later on in the composition. I'm going to start with a relatively big brush. This is a size 16 round sable. This was by Famui. Here's where the sun is, and I'm just going to leave it white. And I'm going to work up, and then I will work down. A lot of times I work from top to bottom, but in this case, because I want to work light to dark, following that continuum of analogous colors that will prevent mud. First thing to do is for me to go ahead and start laying in the light color. And again, I need to remind myself to paint around the sun. And that is a fairly yellow, that's just a pure light yellow color. And now I want to start making it more orange. And I'm not going to worry about whether I get over the tops of these houses, just because they're going to reflect a little bit of that light anyway. So now I can start mixing some of these other colors. So I'm taking this Hansa Yellow Deep, and then I'm going to add a little bit of this Quinacridone Rose. So now I've got a more orangey color. Now I'm working to the left. Here's where I want to start dropping in some more, a little bit darker orange. And I can come in and lighten that where I see fit. Now, as I'm working up the paper, I've wet that edge because I want to blend out that color. Time to shift towards magenta. I'm staying analogous. The moment I jump past to a complementary color, I'm going to get mud. I'll start with Quinacridone Rose. Now that I've laid down the Quinacridone Rose, it's safe to put in the permanent magenta. That's the continuum of colors, the analogous colors that are next to each other on the color wheel that keep your colors safe. Now this looks about right, which means it's too light. So I am going to add in a little bit more. The sun is reflecting about in here. So I'll start with the Hansa Yellow light, around this area. No, that's me. Pull that up. And I'm expecting to get sort of a jagged shape with the sun because of the unevenness of the wet sand. Okay, same idea. Start dropping in some orange. Now we can also see that as we go towards the left, again, because the sky is getting pinker and towards the purple side, that I want to start using some of that color on this side as well. So look at what happened. I didn't put quinacridone rose right next to this orange. Instead, I went straight for the permanent magenta. And now, because those are complementary colors, I got mud. Here's another way mud sneaks in, a dirty brush. But notice it's still the same rule. My brush picked up a complementary color, and that's what caused the problem. Analogous contamination, no issue. Complementary contamination, you get mud. But before I put that in, I want to kind of use this quinacridone rose a little bit so that it's next to the purple and less likely to give me mud. So what I'm going for is for it to be darker on the bottom because reflections in water, the reflections of whatever it is it's reflecting, they're always darker than the actual object. It's starting to dry, so I'm going to have to just work on this section and leave this alone. All right, that one just might be about finished. Okay, I want to point out something that's happening here. I'm getting a backwash, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. And the reason is because I'm going to come back later on with darker colors that will show reflections, and I don't think we'll be able to see it in the long run. So now I am going to dry it with a hairdryer. Here's a tip to help with randomness when you're painting nature. So clouds are a little random, as we know, and the way to help your hand be random is to hold your brush at the tip of the handle, and it makes it harder for you to be even. Okay, so I've got that base color in. Now I can drop in, I'm going to use this Hansa yellow light just to add a little variation, particularly closer to the sun. So there's that wet and wet technique that I'm using. The technique I use is I brush on water onto my surface, just clean water, and I leave gaps. Now I'm dropping in some of that orange and a little bit on the edge up here. And I can warm that up in places. That's a little bit of the Hansa Yellow Deep. I'm going to touch this and let those edges bleed a little bit as I get ready to move across the paper. So that's more of a pinky color, so let me put in some rose. And now I want to put in a little bit of this permanent magenta because the shadows on the clouds are getting darker. And honestly, I'm seeing some fairly dark shadows, so now I'm going to get brave and try some of this Windsor Violet, but I'm working on top of the permanent magenta so I will not get mud. Now there is some in the photo here, but if I put it in here, it's going to end up brown, although it kind of looks brown in the photo. I could take a chance. I could live dangerously. Let's just try it a little bit. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, I got that kind of brown color. I'm going to start with purple. I'm using the size 6 round sable. And I'll bring it down to this line here. Don't want one there. So my paint's naturally thinning out, which is good because now I'm going to want to start adding a little bit of the warmer colors. So I'm going to start with this rose, but I'm quickly going to move towards a orangey color. We're getting close to this area here. So I still have to work with the analogous colors. Okay, I'm going to come like so. I'm going to put a little Hansa yellow light here just to push that orange color a little bit. And I also want a little bit of dark in here, so this will look a little bit brown, but that's okay. That's what I expect. It's like me choosing mud on purpose, but it's not mud. It's a muted color that I need for this dark area. I'm going to first put down some Hansa yellow light just to get things started. And then move into the Hansa yellow deep. And I'm trying to leave this line of light value alone. And I'm going to put in some more sort of what I call juicy reflections than we actually see in the photo, because I think they can be very effective. Now I want to get a little more of a rosy color. That way I'm sticking with analogous colors and I won't get mud when I introduce the winter violet. If you're enjoying this video but would like to see the full uncut version, join me at paintingwithpeggy.com. The link is in the description and the first week is on me. When I lift color and I drag it into a darker area, it might drag some of the color into that area, but that can be really interesting looking. So I'm trying to lift here, and then it pulled some of that rosy color across here. So same idea, starting with a little bit of Hansa yellow light to start to establish the value, and then adding a little bit of orange. Really, this area needs to be a little more pink. If I don't, I'll get mud when I put in the Windsor Violet. Just want to get some things kind of moving down a little bit because the vertical reflections I think really work in compositions, and I'll do more on this side, but I wanted to get this one going. I'm just a little uncertain about this here. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm just not pleased with it. It just doesn't look right to me. Okay, all right. Yeah, so I'm gonna hit this with a hair dryer, and then I can finish the last of the reflections, which will be the houses. Okay, so what happened was this backwash truly gave me mud. I was trying to avoid this. But just goes to show you that, as long as you practice watercolor, it can happen. I think
Sure.
part of the problem was that I was trying to be picky. I was using the smaller brush, and so I was working slowly, and that meant parts of the paper were drying. Small brush, slow work, drying paper leads to overworking, and overworking and mud are cousins. Overworking can cause mud. I'm going to see what I can do to recover. Since I was working with Winsor Violet and then Permanent Magenta, I have to add in Quinacridone Rose before I can put any kind of orange color like I'm going for in this section, or I'll get mud. Now what I want to do is start working on the reflections of this house, and I'm going to use Winsor Violet to do it. Notice how, since I'm layering Winsor Violet over an orange area, the complement of Winsor Violet, I'm automatically getting a dark brown color. This is not mud. This is a dull color that I want. What's happening is that backwash I was fretting about, it's just getting covered up. And so it's not going to be the issue that I thought it was going to be. I wanted to enhance these reflections just a little bit. I'm just going to be working with Winsor Violet. And this is going up at sort of an angle in the reference photo. I want to keep that highlight there. Now I am going to pull this up a little bit to get more of a triangular shape. The reference photo is definitely purple, but there's more value, and I want it to be just a slight bit darker. To make the Winsor Violet darker, I'm going to neutralize it by adding a complement, in this case, orange. If I'm neutralizing it, is it mud or not? I'd say it's mud if you didn't want it. If you're trying to make something bright and you lose that brightness, then it's mud. But if you're trying to dull something down on purpose, because that's the color that makes sense, then it's not mud. I thought these left-hand houses just needed to have more contrast with the rest of the composition. And that's why I've added in this more neutral color, which was a combination of Winsor Violet, Hansa Yellow Light, Hansa Yellow Deep, and a little bit of Red Rose Deep to make sort of a black-brown color. Now, to make the painting a little more balanced, I am going to put a little bit of this neutral color on the right side. Just going to soften those edges. Remember, it's only mud if you don't want it. Now you have the tools to want it or avoid it. But even with the right colors, there's another way painters accidentally kill a watercolor, and that's overworking it. If that sounds familiar, check out this video.